Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back in lecture number 11, which is about the Islamic modes of financing. From this lecture now on, we are going to discuss the Islamic modes of financing, and first of all, we are going to discuss among the sales mode of financing, which I told you in our previous lecture as well. There are three sales modes of financing like Murabaha, Salam and Istisna. So first of all, we are going to discuss the Murabaha mode of financing. And before we go into details of this lecture, let me remind you about our previous lecture. It was about the features of Islamic banking, and we had a comparison of Islamic banking with the conventional banking, and we discussed the governing features of Islamic banking like the prohibition of interest-based transactions. So when we say interest is zero, it means something. It means all of our capital is not going to earn any interest income on it. It is going to be invested. So there will be abundance of capital in the market. There will be more entrepreneurial activities in the market, and there will be more job opportunities in the market. And also it is an interesting phenomena that in the developed countries as well, when they want to stimulate their economy, when they want to increase their economic activities in the economy, they reduce the interest rate. So the reduction of interest rate means that there will be more economic activity. And there are certain countries in the world like Japan and Singapore where the interest rate is virtually zero. It is less than 1% and very close to 0%. And then the second governing feature was avoidance of speculations. Any transaction, any trade where the subject matter is doubtful, where the characteristics of the subject matter, they are not clear, and the risk, how much risk is there, it is not clear. So those things are avoided in the Islamic banking system. And particularly this is a risk management technique as well, when we are not aware of most of the information about any project where the investments are huge and the implications can be huge. So in that case, avoidance of gharar or the speculation is preferred. And also avoidance of operation, again one of the governing principles, that the banks, financial institutions, the individuals, nobody is allowed to exploit the situation of the others. Nobody is allowed to take advantage of the weakness of others. And also the introduction of income tax, the Islamic tax, which is an obligatory tax. We know that as zakat, every individual has to pay zakat on the wealth which has 1 year on it. So this is a mechanism where the zakat will be collected by the Islamic banks and it will be disbursed towards the needy people. And then the financing of Sharia approved activity. One of the main features of Islamic banking is that the Islamic banks are financial institutions. They will never finance any activity which is not allowed under Islamic financial system or under Sharia. So all the activities should be halal activities and they should be approved by Sharia. And that's why most of the Islamic banks, they have their Sharia advisory board. So any product they launch into the market, it should have a prior approval from the Sharia board. And then we compared the Islamic banking with the conventional banking, their basic ideology, their motives, and their operations. So that was about our previous lecture. And in this lecture, and the learning outcomes of this lecture, they are that you should be able to understand the concept of Murabaha. What is Murabaha as a mode of financing, and then what are different stages involved in the Murabaha transaction, and then the practical issues in Murabaha and their resolution, and Murabaha documentation, and use of Murabaha as a mode of finance in the local as well as import Murabaha. So we will be discussing them gradually. First of all, definition of Murabaha. Murabaha is a particular kind of sale where the seller expressly mentions all the costs involved and the profit which is part of that price. For example, if there is a seller and a buyer, and seller normally will take that as a bank or any financial institution, so they will disclose the cost of the subject matter and then any other costs involved, for example freight, and any taxes, any consultancy fee, or any other fee, plus the bank or the financial institution, they will add their profit, and normally they call it as markup. So the bank will disclose all these costs of the asset which is going to be sold to the client, the buyer. So when this is the arrangement, we call it as Murabaha. But when no cost is disclosed and the buyer is not aware of its cost, its freight, its profit involved into it, then it will be known as Musawama. So this Murabaha is written in Arabic like this, whereas Musawama is like this. So Musawama is an arrangement where the client is not aware of the breakup of the total cost. So in Murabaha transaction, the client knows each and every detail of the cost, from the cost of the asset from the vendor towards the when it reaches to the buyer. So any cost which is involved into it and then the profit into it, it is known to the buyer. So this arrangement is known as Murabaha. Since we are discussing a sale mode of financing, so let's see what is a sale. Sale is defined in the Islamic fiqh as an exchange of a thing of value with another thing of value with mutual consent. So actually sale is a transaction where people, they exchange their things of value. Previously in the history, we know the barter system, that people, they used to exchange their assets. For example, if somebody needs buffalo and he has some goats, so the goats, number of goats could be exchanged with some buffalo or cows, and same way different assets could be exchanged and their values, they were justified in the number. And after the introduction of this paper currency, so we have the price for each and every asset. So the currency in our economy is a thing of value because it has a potential to convert itself into some other assets. So the price of everything is known, and the sale is a transaction where people, they exchange their goods and services, and they have their value. So the valuable things, they are exchanged in a sale transaction. And the condition of sale transaction is that the seller must have the possession of that asset which is being sold, and the price must be known, and it must be agreed between the buyer and the seller. And for a valid sale transaction under Islamic economic system, if we look at this chart, we can see that first of all there is a contract between the buyer and the seller. A price is offered, and if it is accepted by the seller, then the first step is taken. And the second step is the subject matter, what is being sold. So it must be in existence. Something which is not even created or manufactured cannot be sold. So the thing which is going to be sold, the subject matter, should be in existence. And the ownership must be clearly defined. Who is the owner of that asset? And who is possessing that asset? The buyer must be having the physical possession of the asset or the goods which are being sold. And it must be valuable thing. It has some value. It should have some value. It should have some benefits for the buyer and the seller. And it must be specific. You must be aware about the units of the goods, or what are you going to sell and what you are going to buy. And it should be sold for a halal purpose. It should not be sold for any purpose which can be used to manufacture or to be used in anything else which is not allowed under Islamic economic system. For example, selling of grapes to prepare wine is not allowed under Islamic economic system. And the delivery of assets at the time of sale or in the future, it must be clearly identified. It must be clearly agreed into the agreement. And the price, it must be quantified and certain. If it is related to the weight, then the per kilogram, or if it is number of units, then per number of unit. Then everything must be clearly identified, and it must be quantified, and it must be certain. And the possession should be physical or constructive. So the seller must be having the physical possession of the asset or the constructive possession of the asset. Constructive possession means the beneficial use. If somebody is going to sell the beneficial use of the asset or the services of any asset, then that value must be known and its price must be known. And then there are different features of a Murabaha transaction. We are going to discuss them one by one. First of all, Murabaha finance is not a loan given on interest. It is a sale of assets for cash or deferred price. Murabaha transaction is not a loan. As it is clear, there is an asset involved. The buyer has the urge to purchase something, and the financial institution facilitates the buyer to purchase that particular asset. So the commodity, the goods, they are the subject matter of this transaction. The objective is not to forward some loan to the client. And the second feature is, it is the obligation of the seller to disclose the cost and profit to the buyer. As I mentioned earlier, it is the obligation of the seller that it will disclose every cost involved into that asset. As I mentioned, that the cost of that asset when it is purchased from the vendor, then the transportation cost, any consultancy fee paid to the agents or any agency involved into it, or any taxes involved into it, plus any profits which are the right of the seller, they should also be disclosed to the buyer. So then it will become a Murabaha transaction. Otherwise, it will not qualify to become a Murabaha transaction. And the third feature is that Murabaha finance can only be used for the purchase of fresh assets only. It must be used to purchase the new goods. For example, the used cars, they may not be purchased using the Murabaha mode of financing. Only the new cars from the vendor can be purchased. And the fourth feature is that buyback arrangement is prohibited. This means that Murabaha transaction cannot be executed for the assets already purchased by the customer. The buyback agreement, actually this is a way to cheat the system. For example, if somebody is possessing a computer, for example, client is having a computer with him or herself, then the client goes to the bank and offers that computer to the bank at a price. Suppose the price is 10,000 rupees, and then it again is sold back to the customer for rupees 9,000. And then for this second transaction, there is time involved into it. And then after a certain time period, the client will purchase that asset back at a price greater than the sale price, for example 11,000. So if the time involved into this transaction was, say, 1 month, it would mean that bank offered a loan to the client of 10,000 for an interest of 1,000 rupees or dollars for 1 month time period. So this arrangement is not allowed under Islamic economic system, because that subject of sale, that computer, remained in the ownership of the client. It was only used to cheat the system. So the buyback arrangements, they are not allowed. So in this arrangement, first of all, the asset is sold in the documents to the bank, and a cash is given to the client, say for 10,000 in this example, and then as per agreement, after a certain time period, maybe 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, any time period, with the given interest rate, it may not be mentioned into the contract, but the calculations behind this transaction, they are based on the interest rates. So with the time duration fixed, the bank sells that asset again to the client, and then bank receives the payment of 11,000. So this arrangement is known as buyback arrangement, and it is summarized in this transaction. So bank offers a loan just by involving any commodity into the agreement, but actually that asset is not transferred to the bank, and then it is only on paper. This is the contract to cheat the system. So most of the scholars, or almost 100% of the scholars, they think that buyback arrangement is not allowed under Islamic financial system. And the fifth feature of Murabaha transaction is that it can either be a cash sale, spot payment Murabaha, or a credit sale, deferred payment Murabaha. So at the time of this transaction, when the client goes to the bank or any financial institution, then the client can make the payment at the spot, or it can defer the payment. So then the profit will determine the duration. For example, the time value of money concept is, under conventional system, the interest rate would determine the time value of money, whereas in Islamic economic system, the time value of money is justified in the price. So when the price is at the spot, the profits involved will be lesser. But when the time is involved, like few months, few years, then the profit will be more than the cash price. So the spot payment will be at a lesser profit, whereas the deferred payment will have some more profits for the seller. And the payment of Murabaha price can be made in lump sum or in installment or combination of both. If it is a spot payment, it is a lump sum payment, and if it is deferred, it may be deferred for some time period, or there may be some installments involved in regular intervals. Suppose if there is a contract of 10,000 rupees, the payment can be at the spot, or it can be delayed to certain time period, suppose 6 months. Then the profit will be little more, the price will be higher, and it is also possible that there will be a payment of 1,000 rupees per month for the next 6 months. Okay, so these arrangements, they are all possible under the Murabaha transaction. And it is a fixed price sale and normally is done for short term. Most of the time, Murabaha transaction is not for a longer time period. It is normally for shorter time periods, suppose for 1 month, for 3 months, and normally the raw materials and the working capital, they are arranged using the Murabaha mode of financing. So the time period involved is not very long, it is short-term contract, and the Murabaha finance can be used to meet the working capital requirements. However, it cannot be used to meet the liquidity requirements. So as I mentioned earlier, under the buyback arrangement, the client, they can get cash from the banks, whereas this is not allowed in Islamic economic system. Only the raw materials, the commodities, the working capital, it should be the subject matter of this Murabaha finance. For example, if there is a poultry farm, the feed stock is a raw material that is going to be used to feed the chickens. So that raw material or the feed stock can be purchased, can be sponsored or financed by the financial institution. So the time period for a flock is normally 1 month or 2 months. So then, if we are talking about the broiler chickens, so then that feed stock is sponsored or financed, say for example 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. So it is a short time period. And then there are various models of Murabaha finance. The relationship of the client and the seller, that is the bank, and the involvement of the vendor will take 3 different types. So we will discuss them one by one. First of all, in the first model, there are 2 parties involved, that is bank and the customer. And then in the second model, there are 3 parties, that is bank, vendor, and the customer. In the first transaction, bank is the owner of the asset, and then bank deals directly to the client and sells the asset directly to the client. And in the second model, the customer approaches the bank for a particular asset, and then bank purchases the asset from the vendor and then again sells it to the client. This is the second phase. And the third phase is that the client identifies the asset from the market, from the vendor, and then bank approaches the bank for that asset which has already been identified, and then there are different steps involved. Bank would finance the whole transaction, and at each level the documentation would be required. So let's discuss each model one by one. So in the first model, which is the simplest model, that is it only deals with the client and the seller, that is the bank. So the simplest possible model emerges when the transaction involves only two parties, the seller and the buyer. The seller is bank and buyer is the client of the bank. And then bank is also vendor and sells the assets to its customers on deferred payment basis. Since bank has adopted the role of vendor as well, it has some assets in its possession. Maybe a bank is possessing some new cars, or a bank is having in its possession any nature of assets like computers, some high precision instruments, and the people who need them, they can go directly to the bank, which is the seller of those assets as well, are taking the duties of the vendor as well. So the bank, as owner of the asset, can sell the assets directly to the client, and this is an ideal mode. And from Sharia perspective, it is an ideal model, and its profits are fully justified because bank assumes all risks as vendor or the trader. So this is the best or the ideal mode where as a vendor, the bank assumes all types of risk involved into the transaction. So if there is a loss or damage, that is all the loss of the vendor or the bank. So this is an ideal mode where the bank as a trader can earn profits, and this is exactly justified as we do our normal trade. We go to the shops, we go to the sellers, and we purchase assets at a price. And this model has three steps. First of all, the customer approaches the bank, and then there is an agreement between them about the asset, and at the second stage the asset is delivered to the customer, and the third phase is that customer pays to the bank. And the payment can be the spot payment, it can be a delayed payment, or it can be on the basis of installment. And the first phase is that the customer approaches the bank as a vendor and identifies assets and collects relevant information including cost and profit. So at the first phase, the client will be contacting different vendors. So if the bank has some better options, if the conditions or the terms and conditions of the bank, they are quite relaxed in comparison with other vendors, or the quality of assets the bank is having is better than other vendors, so the client might be willing to purchase the asset from the bank. So that is the first phase. And in the second phase, bank sells those assets to the customer and transfer the risks and ownership to the customer at a certain Murabaha price. So the risk is transferred only when the transaction takes place and it is complete. So until the transaction has not taken place and it is not complete, the risk of that asset, any loss, any damage to that particular asset, is at the risk of the owner. So the owner will face all types of risk, any damage or any losses. And when the asset has been delivered to the client and the risk has transferred to the client will make payment to the bank. It may be the spot payment, it may be a delayed payment after a certain time period, maybe the lump sum payment after a time period, and it may be payment on installment basis. And each mode of payment will determine the level of profit involved into it. If the payment is at the spot, the quantity or the value of the profit may be lesser, but if time involves a little longer, then the profit will grow more. So it means the price involved will be more if the time is involved. Because the banks, they are the specialists in the financial activities, they are not good as vendors. So a third party is always involved into the transaction. So that is the vendor. So the bank, vendor, and the client. So the second model suggests that in most cases of Murabaha transactions, there is a third party, we call that as a vendor. So because bank is not expected to engage in sale of variety of products required for variety of customers, the bank directly deals with the vendor and purchases the assets. So whenever some client comes to the bank for a particular asset, the bank would contact to the vendor and purchase the asset from the vendor. and the bank sells the purchased assets to the customer on cost plus basis. So when the bank purchases the asset from the vendor, and then the bank becomes owner of that particular asset, and then bank sells that asset to the client. So there are two different agreements, two different transactions. First one is between the bank and the vendor, and the second one between the bank and the client. And both transactions, they are independent of each other. And there are two distinct sale contracts at different point of times. First between the bank and the vendor, and the second between bank and the customer. And this is the graphical presentation of this model, that there are 6 steps involved. First of all, customer will contact the vendor and will identify the asset. What asset customer is going to purchase? And then customer will come to the bank that I have identified an asset and I need financing for that particular asset. Then the bank will purchase the asset from the vendor, will make a payment to the vendor and get the possession of that asset. And at the 5th stage, that asset will be transferred to the customer and payment will be received on the spot basis, a lump sum basis, or it may be on the installment basis. So for each step, let's have a look. At the first phase, that customer identifies and approaches the vendor or supplier of the assets and collects all relevant information. So the first phase is to identify the asset and to collect the relevant information. So the client will be contacting different vendors, and when the client finds the asset or the good which is required by the client or the buyer, then it is the first phase. So after the asset has been identified from different vendors, then the client will contact the banker. So that is the second phase. So customer approaches the bank for Murabaha financing and promises to buy the asset. So at this phase, customer promises the bank that I want to purchase that particular asset from that particular vendor, and it gives a promise. So the promise must be there, otherwise the bank, it might buy the product or the asset from the vendor and the client would run away and may not purchase that asset. So then this is a risk for the banker. And the third phase is that bank would contact that particular vendor which was identified by the client, and bank will make the payment to the vendor and purchase that particular asset from the vendor, and now the risk has all shifted to the bank because the bank has become the owner. Now any damage or any loss in the sale price or anything happens to that particular asset, this is the risk of the bank. So in the 4th phase, bank gets the delivery of those assets from the vendor, and at the 5th phase, bank sells the assets to the customer on a cost plus basis and transfers the ownership. So as per the agreement of Murabaha, all costs involved into that particular asset plus the profit into it, that against that bank will deliver the asset to the client and receive the payment at the 6th phase. It may be again a lump sum payment, it may be delayed payment, or may be on the installment basis. And the third model, which is a bit complicated, the first 2 models, they were quite simple, but this model is a little bit more complicated, and it involves those 3 parties, the bank, the client and the vendor, but there are arrangements are different in this case, and this is mostly practiced model and in the conventional banking practices. So now we will look into detail, and documentations, they are required at different stages of the contract of this transaction. So we have a look at all the stages and the documentation involved into that particular stage. So this Murabaha model is mostly practiced model in banking nowadays, and therefore we will look into it in more detail. So we'll also look at the documentation that is required at different stages of the transaction, and it is also a 3-party structure, but it is a bit complicated as I mentioned earlier. So the relationships in this transaction, they are different from the relationships we already discussed in Model 1 and Model 2. The product of Murabaha that is being used in Islamic banking as a mode of finance is something different from the Murabaha used in normal trade. So as it is different from the normal trade practices, so in Murabaha, we have a different practice. For example, different parties have been involved into it. Otherwise, in trade activities, we simply go to the market, we make an offer for a particular asset and we purchase if the seller is willing. But in this case, there are different contracts involved, particularly in Model 3. So this is called a Murabaha to the purchase order. This is, in this case, it will be known as Murabaha to the purchase order. And the practices are, it is a bunch of contracts completed in steps and ultimately serve the financial needs of the client. There are different contracts at each phase. For example, the client has an extra duty that will be discussed in the coming slides to perform the duties of an agent as well. So that agency duty, there will be an agency contract. So then bank as an agent of the client as an agent of the bank would contact the vendor and would make purchase for the bank. So then the client will take the possession of the asset, and then there will be another documentation at this stage, and then for the payment stage another documentation would be required. So we will be discussing that in detail step by step. The sequence of the execution is extremely important to make the transaction Sharia compliant, and the sequence would determine that it is a valid Murabaha transaction according to Sharia or not. So this is the graphical presentation. So you can see different contexts, different relationships, like first of all the client approaches the bank for a particular asset, and then bank appoints the client as an agent, or it may appoint somebody else as an agent. Then on behalf of the bank, client would contact the vendor and will make the purchase for the bank, and after that bank will make payment. It may be directly to the vendor or it may be through the customer. And then at this stage, now the bank has purchased the asset. Now the asset is in the ownership of the bank. It might be at the place of some of the client, but in documents it is in the ownership of the bank. At that stage, there will be a formality of offer and acceptance, which is the basic fundamental of the valid sale transaction under Islamic economic system. So there will be an offer by the customer for that asset, and the bank would accept that offer, and then the Murabaha transaction will reach to the stage of payment by the client to the bank. So then the customer will make the payment to the bank. So and as per agreement, the payment might be at the spot, it might be lump sum after some time period involved into it, and it might be on the installment basis. And for each stage we have different mechanism, we have different documentation involved, we have different promises involved, and let's discuss the different stages of the transaction. In the first phase, there is a promise to purchase and sell. So this is actually a memorandum of understanding between the bank and the client. The customer approaches the bank for a Murabaha finance and promises to purchase the assets. The customer will purchase as an agent of the bank. So the bank will appoint the client as its agent as well. So first of all, there will be an agency agreement between the bank and the client. And before that, there will be a memorandum of understanding between them, that is the promise to purchase that particular asset. So a master Murabaha finance agreement, known as MMFA, shall be signed by the bank and the customer at this stage. This is basically a memorandum of understanding between the two parties, and they both will agree upon a particular good or asset that will be the subject matter of that transaction. And in the absence of expertise required to purchase particular kind of assets, the bank appoints customer as its agent to purchase on its behalf. So as we know, bank is a financial institution. It doesn't have any expertise to deal in the trade, in the commodities market or different assets in the market. So because the client is the one who is the user of that particular asset, and he or she has more know-how about that particular subject matter, so then it is better, the bank thinks it better to appoint the client as an agent so that the client can identify the asset and can purchase the asset directly from the market. So the appointment of agent for purchase of asset for and on behalf of the bank and the ultimate sale of such assets to the customer shall be independent transaction of each other and separately documented. So then you see here the documentation involved, they are different. First of all, the appointment of the client as an agent, it's a separate contract. That is, the appointment of agent for the purchase of asset on behalf of the bank. This is one of the contract, and then the sale of such asset to the customer, they are two different contracts and they need different documentation. However, according to Sharia, it is preferable to appoint the agent other than the customer, and to avoid any kind of risks or any error that might be involved into it. There may be some hidden intentions of the client, and it might have some hidden agendas or some other arrangements, and the client maybe has an intention to cheat the bank. So it is advisable that agent should be somebody other than the client. But the normal practice is that the banks, they appoint the clients as their agent as well. And under the phase 2, the appointment of agent, it needs some documentation also. So agency agreement is not the condition of Murabaha if the institution can make a direct purchase from the supplier. So agency agreement is not required if the bank can directly purchase from the vendor. And then it is advisable to execute agency agreement because financial institution doesn't have the expertise to identify the assets and negotiate an efficient price. Because as we mentioned earlier, bank has its own specialization in different field. So to identify the relevant asset or which is the subject matter of the transaction, it is better or it is advisable for the bank to appoint some agent to purchase that particular asset. And under the normal practice in our Islamic financial system, the banks, they normally appoint the client as their agent, as we discussed earlier. And the agency agreement would require certain clarifications. There will be some documentation for that. And there will be agreement on different issues like the type, which is global or specific. It should be mentioned in the agency agreement about the type of the agency agreement. Regarding it may be a global and it may be a specific for a particular transaction. And the description of asset to be purchased, what is exactly being the subject matter of the transaction. Which car, if it is for a car, which car, what is the CC of the car, what is the manufacturer of the car, different details, all details will be mentioned into that agreement. And mode of disbursement of funds and how the funds will be disbursed to the vendor. Like when the client or the agent would purchase the asset, then should the payment be made directly to the vendor by the bank, or the payment may be made through the client through the agent to the vendor. And the roles and responsibility of agent must be clearly mentioned into the agreement. And this document must be signed by the parties, particularly by the agent, before the purchase of the asset. And the third and fourth stage, that is purchase of asset by the agent. The customer identifies the vendor as an agent and selects the assets on behalf of the bank and advise its particulars, including the vendor's name and purchase price, to the bank. If the supplier is nominated by the customer itself, guarantee for good performance can be demanded from the customer. So one of the advantages to get the nomination of the vendor by the client, then any damages or drawbacks or any faults into the product would be the responsibility of the client. So then it will not be the responsibility of the bank. And the customer would take possession of the asset as an agent of the bank. Customer will go to the vendor and will make the purchase as an agent of the bank, because there is an agreement between the bank and the client of the agency agreement. So using that agency agreement, the client as an agent would make purchase from the vendor, And if it is the obligation of the customer to ensure at this stage that assets supplied is in accordance with the given specification. So this is the obligation of the client as an agent, that assets must qualify the agreement. So it must be according to the specifications mentioned in the agreement. And to ensure that fresh assets are purchased by the agent, that is bank staff will verify the actual purchase of asset. And also according to the features of the Murabaha transaction, asset must be a new asset. It must not be a used asset. So the bank will verify that it is actually a new asset and the asset has actually been purchased. And the declaration from the customer. So at this stage, a declaration is required from the agent that the asset has been purchased. So the customer will inform the bank through this document that it has taken the possession of the assets on behalf of the bank. It means the client has purchased the asset and has taken the physical possession. This transactional document shall be an integral part of the master Murabaha financing agreement. So this document that the client as an agent has taken the possession of that particular asset, that will make part of the master Murabaha financing agreement. And this declaration must contain the statement that customer has inspected the assets to ensure that its appropriateness and suitability to the customer. So also this declaration will include that the client or the agent is satisfied with the appropriateness and the suitability of that particular asset. Then at the phase 5, disbursement of funds or the payment to the vendor. The bank has two options regarding payment of the purchase price of assets bought by agent on its behalf. That is direct payment to the vendor by the bank. It is preferable. It will avoid any kind of risk involved into it. And then disbursement of funds through the customer or the agent. So both are mechanisms, they are possible, and the modes of payment can be cross-check, the pay order, the demand draft, etc. And the documentation required, the letter of disbursement. This documentation is a request from the customer to disburse funds for payment to the vendor. After declaring that the asset has been purchased and the possession has been taken, this documentation will request the payment, and the disbursement of funds to the customer shall be treated as advance against the Murabaha. So at this stage, the asset has been purchased. Now, asset is in the ownership of the bank. The title is in the bank's name. Now, as an owner of the asset, the bank can sell that asset. So at this stage, that is phase 6, the bank and client, they enter into offer and acceptance phase. So the customer offers to purchase the asset from the bank which it has already purchased, and the bank gives the acceptance, because this is a formality for a valid sale transaction under Islamic economic system. So this is very much important, and at this point the Murabaha takes place. The Murabaha transaction takes place at this stage between the bank and the client. And when the Murabaha transaction has taken place, so this will determine the risk has been transferred to the client. Before that, as an agent, client got the physical possession of the asset for the bank, but after this offer and acceptance, now the ownership has been transferred to the client. Now the risk has transferred to the client, and it is mandatory to determine the Murabaha price at this stage, otherwise Murabaha shall not be valid. So at the stage of offer and acceptance, price must be known to each other. All the costs involved plus the profits or the markup involved into this transaction, that will be known to the parties, that is seller and the buyer, the client and the bank. And it is also mandatory to determine the date of payment of Murabaha price, rendering the Murabaha to be valid. And as per Murabaha agreement, the payment modes must be determined and it must be agreed upon. And at this stage, there is the documentation which is required, that is offer for the purchase. the customer offers to purchase the asset that has already been purchased by the client as an agent. So the document should be signed after actual possession of assets by the customer, but before consumption of such asset. So the customer already has got the physical possession of that asset, but is not allowed to use that asset before the Murabaha contract takes place. And this transactional document shall be an integral part of the master Murabaha financing agreement. And the second is, the bank would accept that offer. So the bank accepts the customer's offer and sells the asset purchased by the client as an agent on its behalf, and the Murabaha price will be paid according to the agreed terms and condition. And the assets must be in the bank's possession by either way, that is physical or constructive. So at that stage, the assets should be in the name or in the ownership of the bank, that is physical or constructive. Suppose the client purchases the asset and takes the asset in the bank's warehouse or at the bank's vicinity, and the bank takes the possession of that particular asset. The client takes the asset to its own place, and then the constructive use will not remain with the client. Suppose if it is a car, the keys would remain in the possession of the bank. It means the bank has the constructive possession. It may be a physical possession or it may be a constructive possession. So in that case, bank can have a valid Murabaha transaction. And this document will also contain the Murabaha price and the repayment date. And at the third place, the payment schedule summary, the documentation when the Murabaha will be executed. Then at that stage, the customer has three options to pay the Murabaha price, that is the lump sum payment, installment payment, or partly instant and partly in installment. So any agreed mode of payment will be mentioned into the agreement. And this document is required if the customer wishes to pay the Murabaha price in installments. And the fourth document is demand of promissory note. That is, after execution of the Murabaha, when the Murabaha transaction has taken place, the Murabaha price will become the debt or dain in Arabic on the customer. And this document is customer's acknowledgement to the debt amount and its promise to pay the debt. So the customer will make a promise at that stage to pay the debt to the bank. And the final phase, that is phase 7, at this stage, customer will pay the Murabaha price to the bank on the agreed date, and the customer is not entitled to any reduction in Murabaha price in case of early payment of Murabaha price. And in same way, bank cannot increase the Murabaha price if the customer defaults or make delayed payments. So what has been agreed, that is final, and any reduction in the repayment is not possible because both have agreed on the terms and conditions at the time of Murabaha transaction. And then these were the different models we discussed, model 1, 2, and 3, based on the relationship of the parties, that is the bank, client, and the vendor. So in this transaction, the banks or the financer, they need some securities, so to minimize their risk. So what are the securities available in this transaction? The institution may ask the customer to furnish a security to its satisfaction for prompt payment of the deferred Murabaha price, to make sure that client will make payment regularly on time. There might be some securities for the bank. And it is also permissible that the sold assets itself is given to the seller as a security, so that particular asset which is the subject matter of that Murabaha transaction can also be taken as security. And it is preferable not to take interest-bearing instruments as securities. So if the client has some bonds or any securities which earn interest on it, those securities cannot be taken as the security for the Murabaha transaction. So the banks, they have different options to consider for the securities of this Murabaha transaction. For example, hypothecation of assets and pledge of goods and marketable securities, lien on deposits, that is the access to the deposits of the client, and mortgage on immovable properties, bank guarantees, personal guarantees. So these are the different securities which are available to the bank or the Islamic financial institution as a guarantee, as a security that the customer will make the payment on time. And then Murabaha is possible in the foreign trade as well. For example, in import Murabaha and export Murabaha, the bank can finance the imports and also can finance the shipment of the exports. That is, it should be pre-shipment financing. It cannot be possible in the case of post-shipment. And the uses of Murabaha in imports, agency agreement must be signed before opening of LC in case of imports. So there must be some agreement between the client and the bank in case of opening an LC for the client. And all costs or charges like the SWIFT charges, LC charge, opening commission shall be included in the cost of Murabaha. The asset, which is the subject matter, would include all other costs. The commissions, the remittances charges, or any clearance fee, or any other cost which has been involved into that particular transaction. And then there will be an offer and acceptance. It may be signed between the parties when the goods arrive at the port, because the bank has already made the payment, so the title would go to the bank. So the bank and the client at this stage will enter into a sale transaction, that is offer and acceptance. And in case of exports, the pre-shipments is the normal procedure as adopted in local Murabaha shall be strictly followed. In case of pre-shipment, the assets which are going to be exported may be financed by the bank, and bank as owner into that particular asset, the share of the bank must be known, and the quantity and the specifications must be clear to the parties. So in case of post-shipment, goods have already been shipped, Murabaha is not possible. However, Murabaha can be executed for fresh purchases required for next shipment against assignment of receivables for the first shipment. And there are some practical issues in the Murabaha transaction. For example, discount on acquisition of assets. If the bank is purchasing any asset from the supplier, from the vendor, and is offered any discount, so ultimately that discount will pass on to the buyer or the client. Discount from the supplier, if any, would be passed on to the customer at the time of Murabaha sale by reducing the cost of sale. And rise in price of asset. If there is a rise in the prices, that amount escalates for which financing is availed, then the transaction can only be executed if bank has been informed and the bank subsequently accepts the same. And if the price of that asset has increased, then if the bank agrees with that increased price and the bank is informed duly, and then the bank can finance and the agreement can continue. And the institution reserves the right to reject the purchase if made other than the agreed price. And also the bank has the right to cancel that transaction, to cancel the agreement if the purchase is made more than the agreed price. And then the change of asset. It is possible in the agency agreement if it is done with the mutual consent. If the asset was mentioned in the contract, that is, for example, a particular kind of car, suppose Suzuki Alto, but at the later stage, if that car is not available in the market or something happens like that, and the client has to switch to another good or to another car, then with the mutual consent, a new contract can be signed. And if agency agreement is for a specific asset, for example, a particular nature of asset, then a new contract would be required. Otherwise, with the consent of the bank, that contract can be continued. And delay in supply from the supplier. Delay in supply in case where specific time was allowed leads to the revocation of agency agreement. In such cases, the customer will refund the cost of the goods. If the time was decided into the particular agreement, then if it goes beyond that time period which was fixed, then the bank has the right of revocation of that agency agreement. So in this case, the customer will refund the cost of goods which were given to the client as an agent to purchase a particular asset. Rollover in Murabaha. It is not allowed in Murabaha transaction under Islamic financial system, because the rollover would mean to renegotiate the terms and conditions of Murabaha. So actually it would mean that there is a new agreement, so which is not allowed. For a same asset, the two agreements, they are not allowed under Islamic financial system. And partial Murabaha, it is also possible. At times, customer may require partial financing for their shipments. So in this case, the share of seller or the bank should be mentioned on the invoice, and that share should be separately kept to facilitate the verification of bank's officers. So the bank would verify that the sponsored portion of the purchases has actually been purchased, and those assets will be kept separate for the verification purpose by the bank. And Murabaha with related parties. In case of Murabaha, the vendor and the customer must be independent to each other. So in this transaction, the three parties which are involved, the client, the bank, and the vendor, they should be independent of each other. They should not have their stakes vested in each other's business. And the banks are not allowed to enter into a Murabaha transaction where vendor and the customer are associated parties. Vendor and the customer, if they are associated parties, the bank is not allowed to enter in Murabaha transaction with them. And also parties are considered to be related parties if one party has 33% or more share or ownership in the business of other party. So the customer and the vendor, they will be considered related party if they have their business share more than 33%. If their share is less than 33%, then they are not considered as related parties. Then the Murabaha transaction is possible with those parties. And the summary of this lecture, in this lecture we covered different aspects of Murabaha transaction. First of all, what is Murabaha, the concept of Murabaha, and then there were different stages involved into the Murabaha transaction, and practical issues in the Murabaha and their resolution, and Murabaha documentation at each stage of different models of different phases. Particularly at the third model, there were different phases, and at each phase different documentation was required. Also we covered the uses of Murabaha as mode of finance in local as well as import Murabaha. And this is all about today's lecture. Inshallah, see you in the next lecture. Till then, Assalamu alaikum.